Welcome back to the show, everybody. Happy 2023 for those that did not join our first show. Obviously, last week, we weren't here.
Seth, we've been off for 2 weeks.
Did we take a 2 weeks?
My God.
We missed the bar.
Is that the longest time off we've taken in 12 years? 11 years?
It's been a while. We missed the Mar. We missed everything about the Mar. We missed the NFL playoffs. Or at least the 17, 18. We missed talking about whether the Bengals and Bills should have been playing. We missed the national championship prediction. Although
we didn't miss that one.
No,
it wasn't missed.
We wouldn't have missed it anyway. I had wished it would have been a better game. But the first 5 minutes were good. I mean, 10-7 at the end of 5 minutes. But the fact is, we really didn't miss anything there. We have NFL playoffs. We have Steve Cohen lost what he hoped was under his tree. And now I'm again looking for a third baseman. But other than that, we're back here. You can find Seth and Sean on Twitter at Seth and Sean or Facebook on our page, Seth and Sean Sports. Seth is also at S. Caymans. And I am SU Lawyer 2001. Once we
although the way Twitter's going, I don't know how much longer I'm going to stay on there. It's pretty depressing.
It is. So, all right, where do you want to start? I think starting with the national championship game is the right place, although it should probably take about 13 seconds. But
Georgia was really, really good. Texas Christian was really, really bad.
Were they really bad, or were they just what they were? Because
no.
Hold on. Hold on. So in the 2 games prior, right, the Big 12 title game and against Michigan, okay, they turned the ball over incessantly. Like they just had a much better offense, or they played better offense against a worse defense than they did against Georgia. I don't think their offense was any different. I think they just played against a better team. They turned the ball over in those 2 games too.
No, I think it got too big for them. I really do. Look, Kansas State, for whatever it's worth, was a top 10 team. Michigan, for whatever it's worth, was a top 3 team. Going into this, was a top 3 team.
Yeah.
They were, even if they lost, and they lost to Kansas State in the Big 12 title game, they beat them previously, they were competitive. They beat 5 or 6 teams that were ranked this year, which was probably more than Georgia did, because the SEC was kind of down. So I just think once they got down, they didn't really know how to respond. Georgia's defense has not been special this year. They were great Monday night. They were not good against Ohio State. They had not been great against LSU. They were not a great they were not a great defensive team. And I think they kind of took it personally and put on a sensational performance. Look, there is a talent disparity there. There's no question about that. And no one thought that if Georgia played their A game and TCU played their A game, then that TCU would beat them from a talent perspective. The thought was if TCU played an A game and Georgia didn't play an A game, which they really haven't played a lot of this year, that the game could be competitive.
So in Michigan, in the Michigan game, they had 3 turnovers. They lost 1 fumble and 2 INTs.
Okay.
In the Big 12 title game, I think they also had 3 turnovers.
Could be.
In this game, they had 3 turnovers. The offense was the same. My point is that against Michigan, Michigan's defense certainly did not come to play.
Michigan had a pretty highly ranked defense.
Correct.
But the amount of big plays from the running back, I forget his name, who was injured. Was it Deuce Vaughn, something like that? Vaughn, I think, was Kansas State. Quentin Johnson is going to be a first-round pick, the receiver. The plays didn't happen. And once they got down, they just couldn't get out. They just couldn't get out of their own way. They just looked like a team. Look, we've seen this before in the playoff. Now, we haven't seen 65-7. Let's keep it in perspective. But we've seen teams like a Cincinnati last year that looked overwhelmed when they made the playoff. Michigan last year looked overwhelmed when they made the playoff. TCU didn't look overwhelmed making the playoff. They just looked overwhelmed in the championship. We've seen it before. The difference is we've just never seen an offense, seen a performance where the other team played that well. Like the one that comes to mind is when Alabama played Notre Dame in the title game about 7 or 8 years ago, the Monte Teo led Notre Dame, which nobody thought was very good. They thought they were a top 8, top 10 team. Nobody thought they were number 2. Bama should have beaten them by 60. They beat them by 25 because pretty much they just lost focus and they weren't. Georgia's never lost focus. And it leads to are we looking at the first potential three-peat in 50 years, 60 years?
Well, before we get to that, let's give our kudos to TCU, right? So nobody thought that they were getting out of the Final Four against Michigan. They
deserve that. That was not a fluke.
No. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, they deserved that game.
But more importantly, to their I was talking to a TCU fan, a guy that I used to work with.
How many TCU fans do you know?
One.
Okay.
No, actually 2. I know 2.
Okay.
I know 2 people. Wait, 1, 2, 3. I know 3. One that I work with currently, one that I used to work with, and one that went to high school with me. So I know 3 TCU.
Wait a minute. There's some guy from Syosset, New York.
A girl, actually, from Syosset.
A girl from Syosset, New York, who's a TCU Horned Frogs fan?
Yes, she went to TCU. I think she went for grad school, though.
Okay.
So I was talking to the lawyer who I used to work with who went to TCU, and he went there for undergrad. And I asked her, first of all, on Monday, I sent him via Drizzly a bottle of tequila. And I said, this can go both ways. You could have it because he went to SoFi. Oh, sorry. He went to Phoenix. So he saw the game against Michigan with his 6-month-old son. He and his wife and their 7-year-old son and 6-month-old son went to Phoenix. So you give the wife props more than anybody else for carrying around that baby in that atmosphere. But anyway, so I asked him if he was going to SoFi, and he goes, the budget just isn't there for SoFi. Okay, I get that. And I said, if you were going to go to a game, that was the game to go to anyway, the Michigan game. So I sent him a bottle of tequila, and I said, look, this could calm your nerves before the game, and you could drink the whole thing if they win, and you could drink the whole thing if they lose. I mean, either way. So on Tuesday, I called him up, and I said, so how much of the bottle is left? And his response was, everything but 2 shots. I had a shot before the game. I had a shot when we scored our touchdown. And then that was it. But I can't ask for anything more from my team. My team did exactly what I hoped they would do. They got to a national championship game when nobody gave them a shot in hell against Michigan. And more importantly, going forward, this lays the groundwork for a top 15 recruiting class. Yes. This lays the groundwork for more money invested
It's laid the groundwork for 3 transfers from Alabama to TCU, which is happening for the next year in the portal.
Right. Well, and that's what I'm saying. That's what he was saying. He's like, look, now we go on to baseball and we go on to basketball, and that's okay. But with regards to football, this is an infusion of money. It's an infusion of pride. And it's an infusion of talent into this program that we haven't seen since Gary Patterson left. And
Gary Patterson left last year.
No, sorry. Gary Patterson's heyday, 10 years ago.
2010,
12 years ago. I don't disagree with him. Like, this is what bowl games do, right? This is what you get when you are Mount St. Mary's, when you're in the college basketball tournament. This is what when you get notoriety, and Shaheen Holloway, right, last year.
Mm-hmm. St. Peter's. Yeah.
St. Peter's, right? More money, more infusion, more knowledge. It just allows your program to grow. So even if you lost, and quite frankly, they probably will not get back next year. It's really hard to get to a national championship game.
Yes.
It is really hard, but is this one of the few times where two teams at the end of the season were actually happy? Like, normally you only have one team that's happy, right? The only one team wins their final game, and I mean, it's like the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
But is it possible that 2 teams here? Like,
I don't think happy is quite the right word.
Okay.
I don't think you can be happy losing 65-7. As an athlete playing as a competitor, I mean, when you played sports and you played soccer, and if you made a title game and lost 9-0,
Oh yeah,
would you be happy?
understood.
No, but can you look back with an innate satisfaction a couple months from now saying, look, we accomplished more than anyone in the entire world other than the people in the locker room thought they did? Yeah, you can look at it that way.
Okay. So let's look at some of those guys that are no longer playing, right? That were on that national championship game. Obviously, Carter is a top 5 pick on the defense, right?
Yes.
Is Stetson Bennett an NFL prospect? He's 25 years old. That's the only thing. He's 25 years old. He is a slight guy. I think he's 180 pounds. Like he's not a big guy. He's 5'10", 5'11". Is there a place in the NFL for him?
Not sure, but I think he's going to get a decent shot at it. Look, I think he'll be a 6th round pick somewhere.
Okay.
I think he'll be a guy who may get one start, in week 16 when the starting quarterback. He could be the Joe Flacco starter for last week.
Oh, I was going to say Desmond Ritter, but he's not Desmond
No,
Ritter.
he's not Desmond Ritter. Desmond Ritter has a legitimate chance to be a starting quarterback going forward.
Right.
I don't think that's likely, but the age doesn't particularly faze me, and I don't understand why it would faze anyone when it comes to quarterbacks. Let's look at what the age of quarterbacks are right now. A lot of these guys, Brady's obviously an anomaly, but 46, 47, Rodgers 37, Wilson 35. Yeah, I know Wilson had a crappy year, but the idea being you can be a quarterback for go well into your late 30s.
Sure. And 40s if your name is Tom Brady.
Well, that's what I just said.
Yeah.
And still be – so I don't have a problem. Look, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, Chris Wenke won the Heisman. He was 28. I mean, the reality is if you can get a quarterback for 7 years as a backup, Jim Sorgi-esque,
sure,
as a 6th round pick, who cares if he's 28 or 31 or 32 or 34? It doesn't matter. I don't think it's an issue. I think it's an issue. I think it's an issue if you have the number 1 overall and you're wondering if a guy who's 25 has capped from it. But when you're not looking at Stetson Bennett to be the next Brady. But again, who the hell was looking in 2001 at Brady being the next Brady?
Correct.
So he'll get a chance. He's obviously a pretty, I think he's the son of a coach. He knows he's won back-to-back national championships, threw for 6 touchdowns in the freaking title game this year, ran for 2 more. I can't imagine he's not going to get a shot somewhere. And I think he'll be a practice squad guy or a 3rd or a number 3 guy with the chance to potentially move up and be a backup, which, hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
And right now, Georgia has the number 1 class with Carson Beck and Brock Vandegrift.
Those are the quarterbacks.
Those are the quarterbacks for next year. Vandegrift, a 5-star prospect in the class of 2021. And
pretty much, look, everyone has Georgia as number 1 going into the season. I don't really know what that means, to be perfectly honest. It's going into a season.
Well, I mean, and this is just the rankings for. They have the number 1 recruiting class too, but we know recruiting classes don't mean anything. Look, AKA, or please see Jimbo.
Texas A&M.
Yeah, just please. I almost said Jimbo Covered, but please see Jimbo Fisher, right? I mean, that's all you need to see. But I mean, look, Georgia's got commitments. They have 5-star guys. There's no question about it.
They have the best tight end in the country in Bowers. They have a coaching staff. I don't think, like their offensive coordinator Monken, I don't think is looking to leave. He's been a head coach before. I think he's perfectly happy where he is. Their defensive coordinator has only been there for a year. So I think their coaching is going to stay relatively. They play a crappy out of conference schedule next year. I'm just looking at it. Ball State, UAB, and Georgia Tech. So, I mean, they're going to be right there. Now, does it mean they're going to be as good as they were last year or as good as they were this year? I mean, look, that's contingent on Beck or Vandegrift or whoever it is.
I love the fact that they have 2 4-star tight end recruits. They already have the best tight end in college football, and yet they have 2 4-star tight end recruits. And they have who, by the way, one of them committed in 2020. almost 3 years ago. And then they have 2 5-star defensive end recruits because why not? I mean, right? Because why not? I'm sorry, they actually have the second best recruiting according to Rivals. Number 1 is actually Alabama.
Alabama.
Yeah, it goes Bama, Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, University of Miami, bringing up the 5th spot.
I'm not surprised considering what John Ruiz is paying for all these guys. It's not a shock at all.
And Mario Cristobal is getting paid. I mean,
a lot of money.
A lot of money. And Texas A&M is 12th, in case we wanted to know. But
no. Let's see them win 6 games. Let's see them win 6 games first.
Oh, TCU right now is 19th. Obviously, this does not include any of the transfers. This is only
of course.
This is only for recruiting from high school. But yeah, I mean, look, you look at how would you sum up this year's college football season?
Frenetic. There was so many strange things. And look, some of it was there's no Alabama, no Clemson in the BCS. You finally had an anomaly of a team make it and actually put on a performance worthy of being there. The initial one, not the backup. Oops. You had Tulane come from nowhere and beat USC. Lincoln Riley needs to build a defense. I mean, good God, Utah ate them up and then Tulane ate them up. You saw Kansas become relevant. I mean, who the hell ever heard of Kansas being relevant? I think it was a pretty fun year. You went to a bowl game. I went to a bowl game.
Look, this is the first college season that I've been interested in a while. And not just because Syracuse was good. I mean, decent. They won 7 games. But the fact is, it wasn't Alabama going to win right away. Georgia was the best team the entire year, no doubt. But they weren't overwhelmingly the best.
They were not dominant until the final.
But that's what I'm saying, right? That made it fun. Yes. To me, that made it fun. There was not these are your 4 teams at the beginning of the season, and nobody else has a shot. Yeah, everybody had a shot.
I mean, Nebraska wasn't walking through that, had the chance to walk through that door.
I'm never going to live that one down. Ever.
No, you're not.
ever going to live the fact that Scott Frost did not bring Nebraska to the playoff, which I predicted one year. But I will tell you, it's fun to look at schedules and say this team could make a run, right? I mean, if you look at TCU's schedule at the beginning of the year, and we did not think that. I don't think anybody did, but I don't know what the odds were. I'm interested in
200 to 1
at the beginning of the year. Yeah. That's actually, I think that's reasonable.
I would have thought it would have been higher. Yeah. I think
but if you looked at their schedule, you would say, okay, they're playing the right teams, right, to make this run. They are playing 5 ranked teams. They don't have an outstanding Oklahoma in that division. They don't have an outstanding Texas in that division. The Big 12 is good, but there's no dominant team like there has been in the past. While the SEC just beats the crap out of themselves every year, and so does the Big 10. Yeah. Big 10 gets 2 teams in there, neither one of them makes the championship game. And we're back to where we were before. Now, next year is a far more, I don't know if it's interesting or sad year, right? Because USC and UCLA come over to the Big 10.
Mm-hmm. Right? I don't know if that's next year. I think it's the year after.
I thought Oklahoma and Texas.
I don't think so. I don't think they've gotten the okay to leave yet. To leave early. So
Oklahoma and the SEC would join. 2024. You're right. Not next year. Okay. Hold on. CLA, Big 10. When do they go? 2024. So one more year of what we got. And then we'll see where it lands. But yeah, I think you relish in next year because the year after that is just a cluster of epic proportions. And I mean, but we will definitely see what happens. And if you're asking me to make a prediction for next year, I think USC is going to make a title game. I mean, early prediction for me is USC leaves that conference in perfect shape because I think they make a title game.
Okay, I'm not going to make a prediction 7 months before the season starts.
Well, no. I mean,
I'll be honest. I think between USC, who still has to show me they have a defense, Oregon, who's going to be excellent, and Utah, who's won the championship 3 years in a row, and Washington. Washington may be my favorite to come out of that division. So, I mean, the Pac-10 should actually be really good next year for the first time in a while, which is why it's such a damn shame UCLA is leaving. USC is leaving. Even Oregon State, the coach of Oregon State, John Smith's done a hell of a job.
So you came down this past weekend. We went. You and Jay came down. We saw the Falcons play in the last game of the season, which absolutely meant nothing. But we were looking forward to seeing which of the NFL coaches were going to get fired. Right? We went through this Black Monday. Cliff Kingsbury.
For those of you who don't know, this is us at the game.
Yes, there is evidence that Seth did come down to Atlanta. There is evidence. Jake did have a great time.
Except it was a little too loud for him, and he missed the seat a couple times.
He missed his seat sitting down, ladies and gentlemen.
He did.
He just missed his seat.
And Twin Peaks forgot to bring him food and then brought him too much food. But that aside, he had a great time.
That aside, we had a great time. So the Cardinals fire Cliff Kingsbury. I thought that was going to happen. You weren't so sure at the time when we.
I was not sure because of the contract issue.
Right. So the Texans fired Lovie Smith, which for the second straight year they go one and done in a coach. First Dave Culley and now Lovie Smith. The Broncos fired Nathaniel Hackett. We knew that before. Frank Reich on November 7th and Matt Rule on October 10th. So currently there are 5 openings. Are there going to be more? And who?
I think Tampa beats Dallas. I think McCarthy's gone.
And is that where Sean Payton goes? Because I don't think there's anybody else he wants to go.
I think there's a very distinct possibility that happens.
Okay, so that's one. Is there anybody else, or is that where we're?
All right, just kind of thinking off the top of my head. No, Miami, no. Harbaugh's just signed an extension. Staley, if Staley loses, could I see it happening? Yes, but I doubt it.
Everybody's waiting for that job. Everybody wants that job because that team is stacked.
Yep.
They're just never healthy, but that team is stacked.
Obviously, no one in the top 3 in the AFC is going anywhere.
And the Raiders aren't going anywhere.
The Raiders would have fired their coach already. We're already into the.
But it's McDaniels. He's after 1 year, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think there's a better chance of Rivera leaving than McDaniels.
In Washington.
Yeah. But again, who wants that job? Who wants that job until you have ownership that's settled?
Right. Vrabel's not going anywhere, especially since Robinson just left. Doug Peterson obviously just made the playoffs, so he's not going anywhere. We just went into the Texans, the Eagles, the Cowboys. We went through the Cowboys, the Giants, Commanders, Niners, Seahawks, Rams, Sean McVay.
It does look like that's a distinct possibility.
Wow, that's called you really pumped up that team to dump them, didn't you?
That is a pump and dump.
I mean, the Cardinals we just went through. The Vikings are safe. The Lions are safe. The Packers safe?
Yeah, I think so.
The Bears are safe with the number 1 pick in the draft. The Bucks, if the Bucks lose this week, is Todd Bowles safe?
He's got another year.
Okay, the Panthers we know. The Saints, Dennis
Allen. I don't think that's safe. But the thing is, typically teams like that would fire on Black Monday.
Right.
So I assume he's safe for another year. Or they're going to start kind of coming up with this idea, which is a lot smarter, that they're looking to interview guys like Leslie Frazier or Eric Bieniemy who you can't realistically interview for another 3 weeks anyway. So why bother until that point hits?
But you can't interview Sean Payton for 3 more weeks either. I'm sorry, for another week. You can
Why not?
interview any of these guys next week, by the way. In between the wild card and the playoff game, you can interview now.
Who the hell has time?
Well, that's beside.
No, I'm saying like it's incredibly silly. You probably shouldn't be able to hire anyone until after the Super Bowl.
No, they can't hire them, but they can interview.
You probably shouldn't be able to interview anyone until after the Super Bowl. I mean, there is a practicality, like a guy like Bieniemy who, is working on is working on game plans for 3 weeks before. Now, you would have assumed he would have gotten a job already. But I do wonder if, the team going so far every year has been a hindrance to his hiring. I don't know. I mean, I would wonder. We've all thought he should have gotten a job years ago based on what Kansas City's offense is.
Well, but and you're always going to come down to, is it his offense or is it Andy
Or is it
Reid?
Eric Reid's or Andy Reid's? I know. I didn't say there's not a second part to it, but you would figure he's interviewed for 15 some odd jobs.
Okay, so we have 5 jobs open right now: Cardinals, Texans, Broncos, Colts, Panthers.
Okay.
From best to worst, which is the best job? And none of them are great, by the way.
Yeah, I don't think any of them are horrifyingly bad either.
Oh, I think the Broncos are horrifyingly bad.
The reason the Broncos aren't horrifyingly bad is because they have an owner who will happily eat a $50 million cap hit in a year without a second guess.
Okay, so he eats the $50 million cap hit, but then you don't have the quarterback nor the draft picks. And you have a $50 million cap hit.
Right, but it's also a much more talented team than some of these other ones.
Okay, so what's the best job?
Just kind of going through them in my head. Houston is not the best job. It's not a terrible job because you have the number 2 pick in the draft. You have a lot of cap room.
And you have a lot of picks.
And you have a lot of picks. And you had a couple guys. You have a couple young guys who've done some good. And you're going to trade Brandon Cooks if you can and get a little bit more. The Cardinals, I think, are a dumpster fire. I think the Cardinals are in terrible shape. They're going to try and trade Hopkins, as has been announced. You have a $50 million a year quarterback who's out for at least halfway through the next year, and we don't know if he's worth it, to be perfectly honest. You lose Watt. Your team is old. You really haven't gone anywhere. You don't have the Bidwells are not known to be the best owners in football. On the bright side, you're living in Arizona, which sounds pretty good. But I don't
ask Cliff Kingsbury with his home that he no longer can afford.
There you go. I think Indianapolis is not a bad. I think everything went wrong for Indianapolis this year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do I think that's to a degree an anomaly? Probably. Quentin Nelson's an All-Pro who had a horrible year. Darius Leonard is an All-Pro who played like 10% of the snaps. Under the assumption at their pick 4 or 5, whatever their pick is, I forget which, that they can get a quarterback because they need to legitimately get a quarterback. You still have a stud running back. You have a stud wide receiver. You have a solid defense, and you have a decent offensive line who had a terrible year. So I don't think that's a bad position. Carolina overachieved with Steve Wilkes. And it's a really uncomfortable position to be in. Because I don't look at that team and see them as overly talented. But Wilkes did such a good job, but we see, that he may have earned the job. The problem is every time we see an interim take over, it typically doesn't work out very well. So I'm kind of iffy on Carolina. Who's the one I'm missing?
You are missing.
I don't like Arizona.
Missing the Broncos. Oh, the Panthers.
I just said the Panthers.
Oh, the Broncos. Sorry. It's 5.
Look, they're gonna overpay for anyone they bring in to coach that. So while your team may stink for 2 years, on the bright side, you'll probably make $12 to $15 million a year. So there's your trade-off.
If not more.
But it depends if it's Sean Payton or not.
I think they're going to have to pay. If they want Payton, they're going to have to pay him 20.
Probably. But if they don't get Payton, and they take somebody else, there's some guys out there. Leslie Frazier's been out there forever. I don't know why he's not a head coach. I really don't. The Philadelphia guy was a Gannon, the defensive Jonathan. I think it's Gannon. Is going to get some feelers. Jim Caldwell already got interviewed. It feels like he gets interviewed every year. Kafka's going to get some interviews from the Giants, although I don't think he's ready yet. So, look, it does seem this year there's a little bit more defensive coaches out there than offensive. So we'll see what happens.
So I agree with you. I think Indy's the best job for several reasons. But number one is the fact that they have the number 4 pick.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number 2, they have Jim Irsay. And I never thought I'd say Jim Irsay was a positive. But Jim Irsay wants to win. He's going to spend the money. He spent the money on getting Matt Ryan. He spent the money on getting Carson Wentz. He spent the money on doing this. It's not, I'm not going to spend the money. The problem is he spent the money on the wrong guys. So, okay, you spend the money. He's a little eccentric. But you know what? I don't mind an eccentric owner. I mean, I got Steve Cohen. I don't mind an eccentric owner. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, I like the Panthers. And the only reason I wouldn't like the Panthers is because they have the number 9 pick, right? And if you look at the number 9 pick, they are going to have to either trade up or they are going to have to go get somebody in free agency. And I'll tell you, Derek Carr don't look so bad there. Derek Carr throwing to DJ Moore don't look so bad. In fact, I think that's exactly where they're going to go is Derek Carr because I can't see them. We've talked about this already. Number 2 pick, Houston, going to take a quarterback. It's going to happen. They have 2 and 12. They're going to take a quarterback at 2. Number 4, Indy, going to take a quarterback. No question in my mind. Number 6 is the Lions. Do they take a quarterback? Probably not at 6. But
no, Goff's been too good.
But 5 is Seattle. Do they take a quarterback to sit behind Geno for a couple of years? And then the Raiders are number 7. So you absolutely would have to jump the Raiders at 7. And if you're jumping the Raiders at 7, you're looking at Detroit or Seattle or even jumping all the way to number 1. And if you do that, then you're killing your draft stock. And I don't like that at all. So I think they go secondhand. I think the Texans are actually the 3rd best. I don't like their management, but my God, the picks that they have this year, Seth, they have the 2nd, the 12th, the 34th, the 66th, the 74th. They have 14 picks. And they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the top 75. I mean, that's a lot of ammo. And they have the 2nd pick in the draft, so they're going to get whatever quarterback they want, in my opinion. I don't think Chicago's going to trade that pick. I don't see it. Then I think so we did that. Then the Broncos, I think, are 4th, and the Cardinals are 5th. And the Cardinals, for exactly the reason that you said, they are an absolute dumpster fire. But they do have good picks. So they're the 3rd pick in the draft. They have 3rd, 35th, 67th. So they have 3 in the top 75. Not horrible, but they need a quarterback, right? I mean, at least a bridge quarterback. So I would go that route. All right, so we have some wild card football this week. You guys made it. Congratulations. Well done. And you have a game that you could win.
We do, though I don't think we will.
Really?
I don't. I think this is becoming too chic of a pick that everybody I know, and again, maybe it's also because I live in New Jersey, but everybody I know is picking. Oops. There we go. Everyone I know thinks the Giants are going to win. Now, I'm not sure if that's from a fan standpoint or from a, experts, but it does feel like a winnable game, especially if Adoree Jackson comes back.
Well, there's always an upset. There's always an upset.
Right, but the problem is no one really feels this is going to be an upset.
Okay, but it's an away game. I mean, it's an away game.
They played them at Minnesota 3 weeks ago. They played them at Minnesota 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Minnesota needed a 61-yard field goal.
Yep.
In overtime on the last play of the game to win.
Yeah. I know. I watched the game.
I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Nobody, I don't think anyone looks at that like they look at Seattle going to San Francisco.
Oh, no, because San Francisco's that much better. You know, I believe San Francisco's the best team in the NFC.
Yeah, I do. So, I mean, I don't think of this game as an upset. I think they're an underdog, but I don't see this as, okay, this will be a shock. I mean, would you be shocked if the Giants won this game?
No.
Then it's hard for me to say this is a real upset.
All right. So is it an upset if Dallas beats Tampa Bay in Tampa?
No, I think Dallas is favored.
Okay. It's an upset if Seattle beats San Francisco.
Yes.
It's certainly an upset. The biggest upset would be Miami over Buffalo in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Especially since DeMar will probably be at the game. Like, I can't imagine.
How awesome is that?
DeMar has now become a LeBron where he is known by one name. Like, and it's his first name. Like Jordan, if you say Michael, people don't know who you're talking about. But LeBron, Wilt, DeMar. Okay. If Baltimore goes to Cincinnati, that's an upset.
No, I think so, considering they're starting
Tyler Huntley.
Yeah, exactly.
But the Miami one would be bigger with Skylar Thompson.
The Miami one would be mind-boggling.
And Jacksonville at home against San Diego, it wouldn't be an upset either way.
No.
So
I do think San Diego wins the game.
So generally there are two away teams that win. Which are the two away teams that win in this week?
Dallas and
well, you just said San Diego.
San Diego. Or the LA, sorry.
Yeah, LA. Okay. If LA plays one more week against Kansas City, it is likely that they get Rashawn Slater back.
Really?
It is likely that they get Joey Bosa back. And wow. Right.
That's game on.
That's game on against Kansas City. Like, I'd be very interested in seeing that game. But anyway, I agree with you. I think, the Chargers win. We should just call them the Chargers because we're never going to get it right. Cincy, Buffalo, San Francisco. I'm going to pick the Giants because you're going to pick Minnesota. So we need to have one thing. And I know that I think San Francisco is going to go to the Super Bowl, so I don't care who wins this game. And I'll pick Tampa Bay. So that my upset will be the Giants over Minnesota. What time is that game? Is that a Saturday game or a Sunday game?
It's a Sunday 4:30.
Sunday 4:30. Okay. So
but what kind of stinks is usually in any wild card weekend, you have one or two games you're really looking forward to.
There's not one here.
There's not one. I mean
I think we're all looking forward to the Bills game just because of what's going on. I think if I'm saying which game would I want to watch the most, is it hard to say Jacksonville and the Chargers? Like,
if as a neutral person, I think that's the right pick. Or the Giants Vikings. Yeah, the Giants aren't a particularly exciting team to watch. So. But I look at the AFC semifinals next weekend, and if it goes the way we think it goes, and you have Cincy, Buffalo, Kansas City Chargers, that's bleeping sensational.
Now I'm happy, right?
Now I'm excited.
Now I'm excited. I'm not a big fan of the Monday night game, by the way.
No, me either. I think it's silly.
I'm wondering what the ratings will be. I think they'll be, because it's Dallas, I think they'll be off the chart. That's the problem.
It's Dallas versus Tom Brady. It's going to be insanely high.
Right. Which only reinforces the fact that they'll do it forever now.
Which stinks.
Right. So is that starting later? Is that starting at 9 o'clock start or
8:15?
8:15, same time? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, at least that's somewhat palatable. We'll be asleep by 11:30. Or midnight, maybe. Okay. So going into this, let's play it out because I don't want to. Let's play. So you have you have the Chargers versus Kansas City next week. Where are you going? Who's winning that game? Let's play it out as if we're We're doing
I still think you
NCAA
have to go
tournament.
Kansas City.
What's that?
I still think you have to go Kansas City.
Okay. I'm going to take Kansas City as well because they'll play at home. And then Cincinnati, Buffalo, in Buffalo. I'm going to take Buffalo because you know what?
The emotional
We all
standpoint.
know I love chaos. And that means that there's a neutral site game. So let's do it. And I honestly want to see how much those tickets are. Like, I'm interested in that. Because right now you can't sell the tickets because you don't even know where it is.
Nope.
Okay, and then I have Buffalo. I did pick Buffalo at the beginning of the season to go to the Super Bowl, and I will pick them.
I don't remember who I had to go to the beginning. I think I had Buffalo too, but I don't really remember, to be honest.
I really think I had Buffalo and Green Bay, so that's not helpful. I'll have to go back and look, but I think I had Buffalo and Green Bay. I will take. I said before I'm going to take Tampa Bay over Dallas, so I have Tampa Bay against the Eagles, which I got to tell you, I'm not excited by that game either at all. I'll take the Eagles because I hate Tom Brady. But again, not excited, but you got to go to Philly to win. So I'll take that. And then I got the Giants in San Francisco, and I'm picking San Francisco to win that game and then beat the Eagles. And then it's Buffalo and San Francisco, which I think is a phenomenal Super Bowl. I think that's
a fun one.
What's that?
I said I think that's fun too. I agree with you. I have the San Fran over Minnesota. I have the Giants. I have the Eagles over Dallas.
I know you don't believe in Brock. I know you don't believe in Brock.
It's not that I don't believe in Brock. I don't know if I believe in a 7th round pick to take a team to the Super Bowl halfway. That comes in as the number 3 quarterback 3/4 of the way through the season. And I understand why you do.
Well, I think the question is, if he started the season, would it matter?
I may be a little bit more comfortable with it because he's faced no adversity up to this point.
Okay, but he has a team that, quite frankly, he doesn't need to, right? I mean, that
but at some point in the next 3 games, there's going to be adversity. There just always is, and I am not sure how he's going to handle it. So I will, for the just like you took the Vikings, the Giants to be. I'm going to take the Eagles, who I don't believe in particularly because I don't think Hurts is healthy. And if Hurts is, with the week off, if he doesn't get healthy, they got a real problem. So I'm very cautiously taking the Eagles, and then I'll take Buffalo over the Eagles.
All right. So there have been backup quarterbacks that have led teams to Super Bowl.
Yes, Jeff Hostetler.
Nick Foles.
Sure.
Kurt Warner.
He was not a rookie.
That is true. That is certainly true.
We have never seen a rookie win a Super Bowl as a quarterback before. It's never been done.
Is that true? Huh. I didn't know.
Roethlisberger is probably the closest, and I think he was a second year or third year guy when it happened.
I didn't realize that. Okay. All right. So
think about it. If you're a really good quarterback, if you're a really highly drafted quarterback, you're not going to a team that's going to really be Super Bowl ready that year.
Right. No, that's true. I mean, look, if I understand, and I'm actually, I hope Buffalo wins just because then I can stop hearing that Buffalo got cheated all those times in every sport, and they finally win a title in something. But truth be told, Buffalo fans are probably the best fans that there are. So
they're up there.
I'm okay with that. Okay, so week 18, obviously some teams did not make the playoffs, but you and I discussed this. I know there's a lack of love in Pittsburgh for Mike Tomlin, but there's no lack of love here. I mean, Mike Tomlin may be the best coach in the NFL for what he did this year.
That team has no talent, or very little. Their offensive line is incredible.
So they started Mitch Trubisky to start, and then they came on to a rookie quarterback. They lost half their offensive line to injuries, retirement, or free agency last year.
And they weren't good. And they weren't a good line before that.
Najee Harris did almost nothing the entire year. Deontay Johnson took a step back. They lost James Washington. Mika Fitzpatrick may be the MVP that nobody's heard of in Pittsburgh because that guy won a game all by himself with 2 interceptions and a block punt.
Yep.
You have friends in the Pittsburgh area that don't have love for Tomlin. Why? Tell me why. I can't imagine.
Because they haven't won enough in the playoffs. It's a problem we both wish we had.
Yeah, I was about to say I haven't made the playoffs.
I haven't won a playoff game since we haven't won a playoff game since 2012. You haven't been relevant since
2012.
2012.
Yeah.
When was the last time you made the playoffs?
2012.
I lose track of the years.
Yeah, it's been a while. Hold on. The last time we were in the playoffs was 2010.
Jesus Christ.
We actually lost the conference championship in 2010.
Was that
to the Steelers? The Steelers, which we should have won because
you were up at the half. You were up at the half, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Doug Bryan missed a couple of field goals. Yep.
Okay.
No, that was before that. Sorry, that was in 2000 and that was 2004. In 2011, we were down the entire game.
Okay.
We were down 20-3 at halftime. 24-3 at halftime, and we scored 16 points in the second half and didn't make enough of it. That was Jericho Cotchery, Rashard Mendenhall. These are names from the past.
Jesus.
Santonio Holmes played for the Jets, and Nick Folk was our kicker. Nick Folk hasn't been right, exactly. We've been looking for a kicker since Nick Folk left. So, all right. So let's move on to look, next week we'll dive a little bit more into the NFL playoffs, but more importantly, we'll catch you up on where NCAA basketball has been, because you and I basically have ignored it for the last month and a half. I'm actually going this weekend to on Monday, I'll be at the Syracuse-Miami game, and then next week I'll be at Syracuse-Georgia Tech down here. So 2 basketball games in a week.
I'm sure it was extraordinarily difficult to get tickets for both games.
The Miami game was $13, and the Georgia Tech game was $35, which is about $20 less combined than our Atlanta Falcons ticket, which just tells you how much the NFL is still the king of everything. But we'll go more into that. But Carlos Correa winds back up with the Minnesota Twins. I got to tell you, I'm pretty happy about it. I'm not happy from a Mets point of view.
I'm happy he ended up at a small market team.
Exactly. This is basically – look, you and I had this conversation when Joe Mauer almost went to the Yankees, right? We've been on the air that long that we had this conversation.
We have. I had hair and less of a gut. And with
where we talked about
your dating life.
We wanted the hometown player to stay in the hometown market. And granted, Carlos Correa is not a hometown guy to Minnesota, but he's as close to a Minnesota hometown guy as there is. Because, I mean, look, he signed a 3-year deal. He opted out. He wanted to stay there. And he said, if you match it, I'll stay here. And they couldn't match it. But they came back around, and he got a higher annual average value, $35 million for the first 6 years, and then a couple of vesting options that are at the 20, 25, and 22 level. Good for Minnesota, getting a guy that they can build around for a while, and that division is there for the taking with them in Cleveland and nobody else.
I wouldn't say nobody else. Look, Chicago did not have a good year, but I wouldn't quite write them off yet.
Okay, so Chicago has absolutely no healthy pitching, and their closer
just went in for cancer treatment.
Unfortunately, their all-star closer just went in for cancer treatment. Yes, and they lost Jose Abreu to the Astros.
To the Astros.
And granted, Andrew Vaughn now gets to play first base, and he's their top prospect. But it's theirs. If Minnesota goes out and gets one more pitcher, this is their division. They can win this division.
They can win the division even without getting a pitcher.
And I think
Cleveland's still the slight favorite, but I think Chicago's still relevant. I don't think they're the favorite anymore, but I think they're relevant.
Okay, fair enough. Are the difference here between the Mets and San Francisco, which has been stated a couple of times, is that San Francisco needed Correa. They needed a player to build around, much the same way as Minnesota does, because Buxton never stays healthy. The Mets don't need Correa. It's a nice ad. It was a really nice ad. And Correamistas, Christmas was something.
Was that in English?
Yes. Was something that I was enjoying, and it was nice. It was nice to have, but it wasn't a requirement for the Mets. They'll put Brett Beatty there at third, or
they're still going to be very competitive.
Yes,
at a minimum.
Yeah, and they're still a World Series contender, even without Carlos Correa. It just means that they won't be so far over the Steve Cohen super daddy tax that they were before. It's not $100 million over the tax. I think it's now only $50 million over the tax. But it does show that he's not shy. He'll go spend the money. And I'm looking forward to seeing him spend the money. So, okay, so you came down to Atlanta.
I did.
Impressions of a city that you haven't been here in, 15 years?
Last time I was there was 2008. When I was
15 years ago, that was pretty good.
I had a good time. The College Football Hall of Fame was a blast. Seeing the ineptitude of my arm after all these years was a little embarrassing.
The muscle memory is gone, my friend. Because the funny thing is, when we went, so there's a option of kicking a field goal or throwing it into a basket, and there were lots and lots of college kids that were in front and behind us, and you could see them throw spirals without any problem. And Seth and I are looking at each other going, yeah, when we threw spirals every single day in college and we did nothing else, this was muscle memory. Now we don't have that anymore. And they were making it the entire time. But
hey, I hit the bar 3 or 4 times, so I can't complain. But more importantly, little dude threw the ball, and I have some video to prove it, threw a couple balls into the net and made a couple nice catches on the wideout when he was running the patterns, because he's a good athlete. It's a nice town. Like where we were was just it was a nice, enjoyable day or two, except for the crazy BI whatever who drove us, the Lyft driver. I don't think my son's ready for a professional football game again. I think that the noises were just too much. I think it was just too much overkill for him. But I'm glad we did it. I'm glad he had fun. It was great hanging out. Sans the wife, which is necessary from time to time. So I didn't tell you this because we haven't talked since I got back. So I was talking with Carly. She goes, "You can go down again with Morgan." I'm like, I don't quite see that happening anytime soon.
Why? You can go to Slow Moo again.
We would do Slow Moo again. She's like, "That's sexist." I'm like, "It's not sexist. She's 4."
Right.
There's a better chance I would do a Slow Moo in New York City and then take her to a show or take her to Serendipity. Yeah. But she's not ready. Like Jake walked 6 miles on Saturday. Yeah.
Slow Moo is slime, guys. That's what we're looking for.
For those of you who are not parents or uncles, we had the slime taken away from us at security.
Oh, did you really?
Well, what happened was we were allowed to bring it on the plane, and I'm behind Jake's back. I'm going, get rid of it. My wife does not want it anywhere near the house. The woman, and the security agent was like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Oh yes, I'm very, very sure." So
you didn't have to get rid of it. You just got rid of it.
It was just easier. It was a nice trip. I was going through some personal stresses, and that kind of relaxed it a little bit.
And it's good to know that Jake gets his athletic ability from his mother. So
no, he does not. Just because you beat me in the 40-yard dash.
So we got 5 minutes left. I want to talk about Dana White. I want to talk. Look, I didn't see the video until recently. He publicly apologized earlier this month, blah, 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 blah. Dana White should be suspended. Dana White should not be the UFC president right now. we have and for those that are not aware, Dana White was caught on camera slapping his wife on New Year's Eve. He should be held to the same standard that everybody else is. And he should have, if there was an athlete that caught doing that, that athlete would be suspended. It wouldn't even be hard. It wouldn't even take 10 minutes for that to happen. Why is this, Seth? Why is this any different? I'm struggling with this. For once, I agree with Nabate Isles. It is very hard for me to admit that, but I do agree with him.
I didn't know you talked to Nabate about that.
I didn't. You're the one that mentioned it.
Oh. Yeah, he should be. I don't think it would. I think his feeling is it would hurt the company more than it would hurt him, which is an incredibly arrogant way to look at it. But considering he runs the company, but he doesn't own the company, he's an employee taking a 30-day break. I'm just actually reading this on ESPN right now.
He's getting paid?
He makes $50 million. He's worth $1 billion.
Right. So he's getting paid for those 30 days.
Yeah. So look, you don't pay him for 30 days. I mean, look, do I think there should be some warranted punishment? Yeah, I'm not sure what it should be. And I'm not sure the comparison to Antonio Brown is valid. I mean, I don't know if what he did was at the same threshold. But look, there should be some version of suspension. There's some version of punishment. I just don't know what it should be.
I think one of the hard things that I have is that, and this goes on a lot in pro sports, is that players get suspended and then owners do something that's similar and they get either away with it or it's a lesser of a punishment. And players go, why? Right? Why? And I agree with them. I don't like, why is Robert Kraft held to any less of a standard than Deshaun Watson? I don't understand.
He absolutely should not. He actually should be held to the same standard. Excuse me.
Right. I don't understand. Why should any player? Why should Steve Keim, who was convicted of drunk driving, have any less of a standard than any player that gets suspended for drunk driving? They shouldn't. It should be equal, if not more, because you are in a position of power. And if you are a boss, it is my feeling that you have the obligation to set the standard and not be the residual, hey, I have more power, so I should get less of a punishment. Set the standard. Be the bigger person. And right now, this is anything but the bigger person for Dana White, because if one of his athletes, if you want to call them athletes, one of his fighters hit his wife, you know damn well that guy would be suspended for many more than 1 month.
I agree.
So, okay. With that, we'll check with you next week. That is Seth Kamens over there. I am Sean Palmer over here. Seth and Sean Sports. We had a great time talking, and we will get to college basketball next week. Have a good one.
Congratulations, Naomi Osaka.
Yes, absolutely.